Did we really turn this into this? Find out how much it really cost. Was it worth it? Why would we waste our time with these shipping containers instead of just buying plywood, groove and tongue, or drywall? Let me know what you would have chose, or if there was something entirely different we could have used but didn't think about, by leaving us a comment below. In this video, I will answer all the questions and more, and to be fair, these are all great questions. My friend and I discussed many options and the cost associated with these. Stick around and find out what we chose and why we made the choices we did. Some of the options we discussed was using pallets and using the boards from those, buying cheap plywood, buying expensive plywood with the nice looking finish, drywall, and just leaving the cabin as is with the insulation exposed. With both of us having kids, leaving the cabin with just insulation exposed ended up being a no-brainer. Heck, I'm not sure I wouldn't pick at the insulation myself, so that was out the window pretty quick, but it was definitely the cheapest option. One thing to keep in mind was that when we got our shed and started the renovation, it was toward the end of the COVID pandemic. Wood prices were insanely high. If memory serves right, it was right around $40+ for a sheet of cheap plywood that would have made our cabin look not so great. Even today, OSB is $20 a sheet, and it would be very expensive to cover the walls. By my estimate, we would need at least 12, but likely closer to 16 sheets just to cover the walls. $240 to $320 was money neither of us had. We could easily double this with the finished plywood boards, and groove and tongue wasn't any cheaper than that, but would definitely have looked the nicest. Since we were planning ahead, it was easier to find cheap or free materials than it was to save a bunch of money. Both of these options were off the table. Not covering the wall was not an option. Plywood, even the cheap stuff, was too expensive. But what about drywall? It would be significantly cheaper, about half the price of plywood. We discussed this in depth, and I do have all the tools to hang the drywall and even finish it, but the issue here again was our kids and space. Kids will be kids, and we want them to be exactly that, but they are not known to be the most careful. We don't want to bring them to the property and make them feel like they have to be extra careful or can't have fun. We thought mistakes would happen and drywall would eventually lead to holes in the wall. Also, where we hung the shelves would be limited. We would essentially want to hang everything on a stud instead of where we wanted. Plus, once you add paint, it wouldn't look much like a cabin anymore. That left us with pallets. We had to figure out exactly how much work it would take to make these boards look great in the cabin. I did grab a few pallets and stored them at my house. It was winter time, so working outside to rip the pallets apart and without the pallet tool was tedious. The pallets would take up a lot of space in my yard, and I couldn't break them up fast. Without a garage or workspace, it would mean a lot of the space is now gone. The pallets would get soaked, and I had no idea when the weather would be nice enough to work on them. The pallets I got were put together well, and I ended up breaking a good number of the boards and took quite a bit of time to take them apart. On top of that, the boards I did get were inconsistent in size, and hanging them would require a ton of nails or screws. However, this still seemed like the best option at the time. One day when I was getting some pallets, I discovered these shipping containers you see me working on. A lot of them were the same size so we could get some consistency in the boards, plus they could be cut down to whatever size we wanted. Best part of all, they were easy to store and came apart without much issue. These containers are super long, 14 feet. If I had an easy way of transporting them 2 hours away, I would have left them in their original size. I think the cabin would have looked the best that way. My buddy and I were thrilled. A free alternative, and our cabin would be bright and rustic like a cabin should be. We only had to think about how we would finish the walls. Do we sand every board? I did have hand sanders, but the time investment alone would have been huge. What other options did we have? I watched a bunch of woodworkers on YouTube. That gave me an idea to plane the boards. We could make them all the same thickness and have a beautiful finish. Only problem was neither of us had a planer, nor could we think of anyone that had one we could borrow. Purchasing a new one was at least a $200+ investment, and I did want a planer anyway, but again, I'm in a situation where I'd be spending money I didn't have. Buying new and reselling it would still be a big loss. But we ended up looking at Facebook Marketplace to see if we could get a used one. Then if we wanted to resell it, we could make our money back or close to what we originally spent. We now had a plan, a place to get materials, and on a budget we could live with. We found a planer on Facebook for $175. Everything was in motion. I didn't get a chance to record us planing these due to time restraints. When I hung these, I decided that trimming the sides of the boards would also make them look better once we hung them. I was able to borrow a table saw, so there was no cost there. In all, we spent $175, most of which we can make back should we decide to resell the planer. There are some imperfections in how all these pieces fit together. I'll point these out in a future video. Do you think we made the right choice? As you can see here, we got a lot of boards which ended up being beautiful walls in our cabin. Best of all, we don't have to worry about kids breaking anything. If you made it this far in the video, leave a comment below or subscribe and let me know you subscribed, and I will be sure to answer you. And remember, keep building your dreams.